Do you believe that death is the end? That when the heart stops beating, we simply fade away like a candle being blown out? Well, I believed that too, until the day I died. And what I discovered on the other side completely changed everything I thought about life, about love, and especially about what truly remains when everything else disappears. What I'm about to share with you is not fantasy, not the fertile imagination of someone who has read too many books on spirituality. It's a real, raw account from someone who crossed the line between worlds and returned with a message that goes against everything we've been taught. Do you know that pain you carry, thinking you'll never see the one you've lost again? That paralyzing fear that when you die, it will only be darkness and eternal emptiness? What if I told you that this is the biggest lie ever told to humanity? During the minutes my body was clinically dead, I experienced something so profound, so real, that it changed every cell of my being. I saw things that science still can't explain. I felt things that religions try to describe but don't even come close to. And the most shocking discovery of all? Love doesn't end. Never. It is eternal, immortal, indestructible. I know it sounds absurd. I know your rational mind is screaming, this isn't possible. But what if it is? What if you've been living your whole life based on a lie about what comes next? What if the people you've lost are still out there, waiting to be reunited? What if everything you're going through now, every pain, every tear, every sleepless night, is part of a much bigger plan that will only make sense when you see beyond the veil? In the next few minutes, I'm going to take you with me on this journey between life and death. I'm going to show you what I saw, what I felt, and above all, what I learned about the true meaning of our existence. If you've made it this far, it's no coincidence. Some part of you is searching for answers, feeling that there's something beyond what your eyes can see. And this story I'm about to tell might be exactly what your soul needs to hear. So subscribe to the channel, leave a like so this message reaches more people who need to know that death is not the end, and share it with someone you love, because after what you're about to discover here, you'll never look at life the same way again. You know that feeling when life can change in the blink of an eye? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. One moment I was living my usual routine, breathing, thinking about the day's problems, and the next second, I simply wasn't there anymore. Not in the way you imagine when you think about sleeping or passing out. It was different. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and, suddenly, I was no longer part of this world we know. The strange thing is that we always think we know what comes next, right? Some believe in heaven, others in absolute nothingness, some talk about reincarnation. But when you actually go through it, you realize that no description comes close to the real experience. It's like trying to explain the color blue to someone who has never seen it. Words simply can't capture it. And look, I wasn't prepared for this, nobody is. Death doesn't set a time or warn you when it's coming to knock on your door. During those moments, which felt like an eternity and a second at the same time, I saw things that completely changed my perspective on existence. I'm not talking about fantasy or a fertile imagination. I'm talking about something as real as you reading these words now. And the most curious thing? I discovered that everything that truly matters in this life can be summed up in a single word. But before I get there, I need to tell you what it was like to feel my body being left behind, as if I were stepping out of old clothes. The first thing you notice is the silence. Not the usual silence you feel when you turn off the TV or close the window. It's a profound, absolute silence, as if the entire universe had held its breath. And then comes the strangest sensation. You're there, but at the same time you're not. It's as if you have two versions of yourself, one lying still, heavy as lead, and the other light, floating, free. At that moment, I realized I was no longer a prisoner of that pile of flesh and bones we call a body. You know when you wake up from a very real dream and it takes you a few seconds to understand where you are? It was similar, only the opposite. I was more awake than ever, more aware than at any point in my life. I could see my body down there, and yes, it was incredibly strange to look at myself from the outside, but I didn't feel afraid. It was almost like observing a house you lived in for years but that is no longer yours. You have affection for the building, for the memories, but you know it's time to leave. The feeling was one of indescribable freedom, as if I had spent my whole life carrying a backpack of stones and someone had finally taken that weight off my shoulders. What impressed me most was realizing that I was still me. My thoughts, my memories, my essence, everything was intact. We grow up hearing that we are our bodies, that when the body stops, it's over. But there, floating in that state between worlds, I had absolute certainty. We are much more than this physical shell. The immortal soul we carry doesn't need eyes to see, ears to hear, or skin to feel. And as I moved further and further away from that material form, I began to realize I was being pulled somewhere. Imagine a space where there is no floor, ceiling, walls. In fact, nothing you know as a place exists. It was like being suspended in a dimension that the human mind wasn't programmed to comprehend. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't light either. It wasn't cold or hot. It was simply empty. But an emptiness filled with something, you know? As if every inch of that nothingness was charged with potential, with energy, with infinite possibilities. There, in that spiritual plane, time didn't exist in the way we know it. Past, present, and future seemed to be happening all at once. The curious thing is that in that void I didn't feel lost. It was more like being in a cosmic waiting room, a portal between two worlds. I could feel the life I left behind, like a distant echo, but I also felt something ahead, something bigger calling me. It's difficult to describe because we don't have words for these things. It's like trying to explain the taste of chocolate to someone who has never tried it. You can say it's sweet, creamy, but the real experience is something else. In that state of consciousness beyond the body, I realized that death is not an end, it's a passage, a door that opens to another dimension of existence. And you know what's most impressive? In that emptiness, I wasn't alone. I didn't see anyone yet, but I felt presences. It was like being in a dark room knowing someone was there with you. You don't see them, but you feel them. There was a feeling of being watched, but not in a threatening way. It was more as if there were guardians there, waiting, protecting, guiding. And it was precisely at that moment when I started to wonder, and now, where do I go, that I heard. The voice didn't come from outside, it came from within. But at the same time, it seemed to come from everywhere at once. It wasn't deep or high-pitched, neither masculine nor feminine. It was simply perfect. It carried such a profound weight of wisdom that it made you feel you were standing before something ancestral, eternal. That spiritual voice didn't speak with words like we speak here, you know? It was more as if the thoughts were placed directly into my consciousness, as if someone were writing absolute truths directly onto my soul. And the first thing it said to me was something that would change everything: you're not finished yet. At that moment, I felt such a loving, welcoming presence that all my earthly worries seemed small, insignificant. It was as if a spiritual mentor, someone who had known me forever, was there guiding me. The voice didn't judge, didn't criticize, it only showed. It made me understand that this wasn't my final moment, that I had an unfinished mission down there. And look, it wasn't like receiving a military order. It was like receiving an invitation full of love, a divine calling that respected my will but at the same time made me want to return, want to continue. What was most striking was realizing that the voice knew every detail of my existence. Every thought I'd had, every choice I'd made, every tear I'd shed, it was all there, exposed, but without shame or guilt. It was like standing before a spiritual mirror that reflected not only who I was, but who I could be. And then, before I could process it all, the voice said something that made me tremble. Before you go back, you need to see what you left behind. And suddenly, my whole life began to flash before my eyes. It was like watching a movie in high speed, but feeling every emotion again. Every important moment of my life began to unfold before me, not linearly as we remember it here, but all at once, in layers. I saw my childhood, my adolescence, my mistakes, my successes. But the most shocking thing wasn't reliving the scenes, it was feeling the impact each of my actions had on other people. When I was cruel to someone, I felt that person's pain. When I was kind, I felt the joy I caused. It was a complete spiritual review, unfiltered, without excuses. You know those things we do and think don't matter? A poorly chosen word, a gesture of indifference, a missed opportunity to help someone? There, in that heightened state of consciousness, I realized that nothing is too small, nothing goes unnoticed. Every choice creates waves that spread through eternity. And karma isn't punishment as many people think. It's simply the natural law of cause and effect. It's life teaching you through your own actions. Seeing all that was like receiving decades of therapy in a few moments. Did it hurt? It hurt a lot. But it also healed. The interesting thing is that along with these memories of the past, I began to have flashes of something deeper, as if there were other lives, other existences that were also mine but that I couldn't fully access. It was like seeing the tip of a gigantic iceberg, knowing that there is much more hidden below the surface. And it was precisely when I began to delve into these deeper layers of my soul that something extraordinary happened. A mirror appeared before me, but the reflection I saw was not what I expected. When I looked into that spiritual mirror, I didn't see my face. I saw light. I saw pure energy pulsing in shapes and colors that don't exist here on Earth. But within that light, I also saw shadows. Not the frightening shadows from horror movies, but the parts of myself that I hid, that I denied, that I pretended didn't exist. The mirror didn't lie. It showed my true essence, without the masks we wear every day to survive in this world. And there, in that confrontation with my own soul, I understood what it truly means to know oneself. The self-knowledge we seek down here, through therapy, meditation, self-help books, all of that is just a rehearsal for the real encounter with yourself. Because when you're there, without a body, without ego, without anything to hide behind, you see the naked truth. I saw my unhealed wounds, my deepest fears, but I also saw my strength, my potential, my infinite capacity to love and evolve. The mirror showed me that healing the soul doesn't happen by hiding what hurts, but by facing it head-on, with courage and compassion for yourself. And it was in that moment of total transparency that something incredible happened. The mirror began to expand, and within it, other images began to emerge. It wasn't just me anymore. It was other people, other faces, other lives intertwined with mine in ways I never imagined. It was like discovering that my personal story was just a thread in a gigantic tapestry, where every soul was connected, weaving together the grand design of existence. And suddenly, a particular face appeared there, so clear, so familiar, that my heart, or whatever it was that I felt in that state, raced. It was him. Even without a body, even in that spiritual state, I recognized that soul immediately. Not by physical appearance, because there were no faces as we know them, but by the energy, by the unique vibration that only that person carried. He was someone who had been a significant presence in my life, someone who taught me profound lessons through love and also through pain. And the most impressive thing, at that moment I could see that it wasn't the first time our souls had met. There was a history, a connection that transcended time, lives linked by invisible but unbreakable threads. You know when you meet someone and feel like you already know that person from somewhere? That instant feeling of familiarity? Well, that's when I understood that it's not a coincidence. There are souls that travel together through existence, meeting and reuniting, each time in a different role, sometimes as friends, sometimes as family, sometimes as lovers. The spiritual love that connects these souls goes far beyond the romance of a movie or soap opera. It's a deep connection that survives the death of the body, that persists through dimensions, that is part of the very fabric of the universe. And there, seeing that soul I loved so much and who caused me so much suffering, I understood something fundamental. Destiny is not a fixed path you are forced to follow. Destiny is a preordained encounter between souls who have something to learn together. Every encounter, every significant relationship in your life is not by chance. They are eternal connections manifesting on the physical plane so that you can evolve together. And the more I looked at that presence, the more I understood that there was something unfinished between us, something that needed to be resolved. But for that, I would first need to understand what it truly means. The spiritual forgiveness I learned there has nothing to do with that forced forgiveness we give just to look good or because someone told us to. It was something much deeper, almost revolutionary. It was understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they have at that moment. The person who hurt me? They were hurt too. The one who betrayed me? They were lost. And me, who also hurt so many people throughout my life. I was learning, stumbling, trying to find my way like everyone else. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about freeing my soul from the weight of carrying grudges for eternity. The emotional healing that occurred in those moments was like removing old splinters that had been embedded in my essence for so long that I didn't even remember when they got there. Every time I released a grudge, a part of me lit up. Every time I forgave others and especially myself, I felt my soul becoming lighter, purer, closer to what it truly should be. And I understood that this is the great secret of the soul's evolution. It's not about being perfect, it's about learning from each stumble and transforming pain into wisdom. Karma and learning are not divine punishments as many people imagine. They are opportunities disguised as challenges. Every difficult person you encounter is a teacher. Every painful situation is a lesson. And when you finally understand this, when you stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as a student in a giant cosmic school, everything changes. There, forgiving that soul that marked me so deeply, I felt I was freeing myself from invisible chains. And it was precisely when this forgiveness was complete that something forcefully pulled my conscience. It was time to... The sensation was like being sucked into a gigantic funnel. Everything that was light, fluid, and expansive began to compress, to tighten, to become heavy again. It was like putting on wet, tight clothes after swimming naked in an endless ocean. I fought against it for a moment, not because I wanted to die, but because that freedom was so intense that going back felt like imprisonment. But at the same time, something was pulling me back with magnetic force. A mission. A purpose. People who still needed me. And above all, something I needed to do before it was too late. The awakening from the coma was brutal. Suddenly, there was pain. There was weight. There was limit. My lungs burned trying to remember how to breathe. My heart beat erratically as if relearning its rhythm. I opened my eyes and the light of the physical world seemed aggressive, too noisy after that sacred silence. The people around me talked, cried, celebrated my return to life, but I was still half there, half here, trying to process everything I had seen, felt, learned. It was like waking from a dream so real that reality seemed false. But something had changed forever. I had been given a second chance, a complete spiritual rebirth. I was no longer the same person who had left moments before, although in the physical world, it had been much longer than moments. Every cell in my body knew that something extraordinary had happened. And as I recovered there, still weak but alive, an absolute certainty pulsed in my chest. I needed to find that person I saw on the other side. Because if our souls met in that dimension, it could only mean one thing. Somewhere in this physical world. I spent months searching. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. After all, how do you explain to people that you saw someone's soul on the other side and now you need to find that person here? It sounds crazy, right? But I was absolutely certain that this reunion of souls wasn't just a vision, it was a sign, a map that the universe had given me. And you know how it is, when you pay attention to the signs, when you trust that inner voice that the spiritual experience sharpened, things start to fall into place in surprising ways. A casual conversation here, a place you decide to visit on impulse there, and suddenly, I saw him. On an ordinary afternoon, in an ordinary place, doing something completely ordinary. But the second our eyes met, I knew. And by the way he stopped, the way he looked at me with that expression of recognition impossible to explain, he knew too. We didn't need formal introductions, it was as if our souls had already introduced themselves long ago, in another dimension. The synchronicity of that moment was so perfect it was almost frightening. From all the cities, from all the places, from all possible moments, we were there, together again. Love that transcends lifetimes doesn't need much time to recognize itself. It simply knows. We started talking, and every word confirmed what I had seen on the other side. The experiences he had lived through, the pain he carried, the lessons he had learned, it was all part of that intertwining of souls that I had witnessed. He too had gone through trials, he too had his scars, he too was searching for something greater. And when I finally had the courage to tell him about my near-death experience, he didn't laugh, he didn't doubt. His eyes filled with tears and he said something that made me absolutely certain of the spiritual destiny that united us. I always felt I was waiting for someone, I just didn't know who. And it was there, in that moment of total vulnerability, that I understood who it was. The voice I heard on the other end hadn't sent me back for nothing. It kept echoing in my head for weeks, months. You're not finished yet. But finished what? It was only after that reunion that everything started to make sense. My spiritual purpose wasn't just to live my little life, pay the bills, and wait for death to come again. It was to share what I had learned, to show people that death is not the end, that love is eternal, that there is something much greater waiting for all of us. It was to transform that profound experience into a bridge between worlds, helping others to see beyond the veil of matter. Starting over wasn't easy. When you come back from an experience like that, the world seems too small, people's worries seem silly, priorities change completely. I couldn't care about the same things anymore: gossip, status, accumulating material possessions. All of that became noise. The personal transformation was so radical that some people distanced themselves, thinking I had gone crazy. Others drew closer, feeling that I carried something different, a light they were also seeking. And together with this person I rediscovered, we began to build something new. Not just a relationship, but a shared mission. I discovered that life's mission isn't something grandiose you need to do alone, saving the world like a superhero. Sometimes it's simple. It's being kinder, forgiving faster, loving without fear, sharing your truth even when it seems crazy to others. It's living in a way that makes the people around you wonder, what makes this person different? And the answer is simple: the absolute certainty that nothing here is by chance, that every encounter has a purpose, and above all, that there is a force that transcends all barriers, that survives death, that is the very essence of existence. Do you know what the greatest discovery I made on the other side was? That eternal love isn't just a pretty line from a movie or a romantic song. It's a universal law as real as gravity. When you truly love someone, and I'm not talking about that superficial love based on appearance or self-interest, you create a bond that transcends the physical. The spiritual connection that forms between two souls doesn't disappear when the body dies. It continues, it persists, it strengthens. And the most incredible thing, love doesn't end, it just changes form, transforms, expands to dimensions we can't even imagine from here. During my experience, I saw that all religions and philosophies are right about one thing. In the end, only love matters. It doesn't matter how much money you've amassed, how many diplomas you've hung on the wall, how many likes you've gotten on social media. None of that penetrates the veil. What does penetrate is the love you've given, the lives you've touched, the souls you've helped evolve. Soulmates, and yes, they exist, aren't necessarily perfect for each other. They are souls that agreed before birth that they would meet here below to learn together, grow together, and elevate themselves together. It's a spiritual contract sealed long before any birth certificate. And this spiritual reunion I experienced proved something fundamental to me. When two people truly love each other, even if life separates them for a time, whether through distance, wrong choices, or even death, they always find a way to return to each other. Because true love is like a cosmic magnet that attracts souls across space and time. It knows no barriers, understands no such thing as impossible, and doesn't accept no for an answer. And it was precisely this magnetic force of love that brought me back, that made me find the person I needed to find, and that gave me the certainty that there is meaning in all of this. But what I truly learned there, on the threshold between life and death, went far beyond romantic love. The first and most important spiritual lesson was understanding that death is just an illusion. It sounds revolutionary to say that, but it's the most basic truth in the universe. What dies is only the body, that temporary vehicle we use to experience this physical world. You, your essence, your consciousness, that never dies. It's like changing clothes or cars. You remain you, you're just using a different instrument to express yourself. And when you truly understand this, not just intellectually but deep in your soul, the fear of death simply disappears. And without fear of death, you begin to truly live. Another thing that soul learning has shown me with crystal clarity: every person who crosses your path is a mirror. Those who irritate you are showing you something in yourself that needs healing. Those who inspire you are showing you potentials you also have but haven't yet developed. Those who love you are reminding you of your own capacity to love. Nothing is random, everything is a lesson. And the messages from beyond aren't as complicated as we imagine. They are simple, direct, practical: love more, judge less, always forgive, live without fear, trust the process. Spiritual wisdom doesn't need difficult words or complicated rituals. It's accessible to anyone who has the courage to look within. And do you know what lesson shocked me the most? That we're not here to be happy all the time. We're here to evolve. And evolution hurts. The worst phases of your life, the ones you pray every day will end soon, are precisely the ones that teach you the most, the ones that transform you the most. On the other hand, I saw that every pain I went through here had a purpose, every tear I shed was watering seeds of growth. Life isn't about avoiding suffering, it's about transforming suffering into wisdom. And when you understand that, when you stop fighting against difficulties and start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That's when you begin to awaken to a path of. After I returned, the biggest change I felt in myself was in my capacity to forgive. And look, it wasn't something that happened overnight. Inner forgiveness is a process, not an event. You don't wake up one day and simply forgive everyone and that's it, it's over. It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer, you discover old grudges, resentments you didn't even remember carrying, anger hidden in corners of your soul. And each of these layers needs to be seen, felt, and released. Does it seem like hard work? It is. But it's the most important work you'll do in your life, because as long as you don't forgive, you're stuck. The profound emotional healing I experienced began when I understood one fundamental thing. Forgiving doesn't mean agreeing with what was done to you. It's not saying, okay, you can hurt me again. Forgiving is letting go of the rope in the tug-of-war you're playing with that person or situation. It's realizing that while you're dwelling on the past, the only person being poisoned is you. The person who hurt you is probably living their life while you're here ruminating on the pain. Spiritual liberation happens when you finally get tired of carrying that weight and decide, enough. I deserve peace, and to have peace, I need to let go of this. And you know what's most beautiful? When you truly begin to forgive others, you automatically begin to forgive yourself. Because deep down, the person you most need to forgive is yourself. For all the times you weren't strong enough, weren't smart enough, didn't make the right choice. The inner peace that comes from total forgiveness of others and of yourself is like removing a 100-pound suit of armor you were carrying without realizing it. Suddenly you can breathe again, you can feel again, you can live again. And it's this lightness, this freedom gained through forgiveness, that prepares you to understand the deepest truth of all. After everything I've lived through, everything I've seen on the other side, all the lessons I've learned, I can summarize my entire existence in a single sentence. Love is eternal, and it's the only thing that truly matters. Does it sound cliché? Does it sound like something you've heard 1,000 times? Well, it's only when you die and come back that you understand the true weight of these words. I'm not talking about the romantic love of movies, I'm not talking about passion that lasts 2 months. I'm talking about that primordial force that moves the universe, that connects all souls, that survives when everything else disappears. This is the message of hope I brought with me. No matter how much pain you've endured, no matter how many times you've fallen, love always wins in the end. True spirituality isn't found in complicated rituals, specific religions, or secret knowledge. It's in how you treat people, in how much love you can give without expecting anything in return, in how many times you choose compassion instead of judgment. The meaning of life we so desperately seek isn't out there, in some hidden mystical answer. It's here, in this very moment, in your capacity to love and be loved. Every smile you give a stranger, every time you forgive someone who has hurt you, every moment you choose kindness instead of anger, all of this is building your eternity, weaving your true essence. And what about the immortal soul we all carry? It doesn't need scientific or religious proof to exist. It simply is. And when your physical body finally stops functioning, because it will, one day it will, you'll realize that nothing is over. You will continue to be you, conscious, alive, real. And the only thing that will matter at that moment is how much love you cultivated, how many lives you touched, how many souls you helped awaken. Because in the end, when everything else turns to dust, love remains. It crosses worlds, crosses lives, crosses death itself. And it is this certainty that I carry with me every day since I returned. Love never ends, it only transforms and continues, eternally, infinitely, magnificently. So tell me something, after everything you've heard here, are you still going to live in fear? Are you still going to waste your days fighting over nonsense, holding grudges against those who hurt you, failing to say, I love you, to those who matter because you're ashamed or proud? Or are you finally going to understand that time here is too short to live small, to live with a closed heart, to live as if this were the only chance you have? Because look, I've come back to tell you, this experience here on Earth is precious, it's rare, it's a unique opportunity to evolve, to love, to make a difference. Don't throw it away. I want you to stop right now. Seriously, stop for a minute and think. If you died today, what would remain? What mark did you leave on the people around you? How many times did you choose love over fear? How many opportunities to forgive did you let pass? How many words of affection remained stuck in your throat? Life won't give you a warning when it's coming to an end. It won't play a dramatic little tune saying, look, your last days are coming, take advantage of this time to fix things. The moment is now. It always has been now. And it always will be now. I challenge you to do things differently starting today. Call that person you've been avoiding out of pride. Forgive those who hurt you, not for their sake, but for your own. Tell those you love how much you love them without waiting for the perfect moment. Because the perfect moment is now. Live each day as if it were your last, but also as if you were going to live forever, because in a way, you will. Your soul is immortal, but this version of you, with this body, with these people around you, with these specific opportunities, this is unique, unrepeatable, sacred. Look, if this story touched you in any way, if something here resonated with your heart, I need you to do two things. First, subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell, because I'll continue bringing you profound content about spirituality, about the meaning of life, about how to live in a way that truly matters. And second, tell me in the comments, what will you do differently from now on? What change did this story awaken in you? Because when you share, when you commit publicly, you multiply the chances of actually transforming that into action. And who knows, maybe your story, your transformation, will inspire someone else who needs to hear exactly that. Love is eternal, the soul is immortal, and you have a unique purpose in this universe. Don't let this life pass you by. Forgive. Evolve. And we'll see you in the next video, where we'll delve even deeper into these mysteries of existence. A hug, and remember, love never ends.